There's a box set up. Those ports may be full. There's 2 ports on the outside.
Yeah, I'll go look.
Yes. Hi, I'm Ellen. Nice to meet you.
What's up?
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you. So you found it? I did. Doesn't make any sense. Alright, so anyone just like the usual. Yeah, probably more.
Who are you out here for?
Missouri. Yeah.
Cool.
How's life?
It's
good.
Yeah. I tried to Uber drive for 6 weeks.
How was that?
I worked for 4 hours and I made $175.
It's pretty good. Did you work night shift or day side?
No, I worked I drove from 10 to 2 a.m. Saturday night. That's a sweet spot.
Yeah, willing to get what surge charge?
Yeah, it was surging like 5.8 times. What? Who would have a great Uber and pay $6,000?
Drunk
people. Yes.
I feel like you'd be a good Uber driver, Joe.
I was. I got a lot of compliments.
That's good.
5-star ratings all over.
Yay!
There you go.
Morning. Good, how are you? I have to be somewhere else, but.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. You should be back. I actually remember my
I don't know. Any questions for person there? You wrote it and we met with CDW. With that, I don't. Morning.
Did you get a haircut?
What?
Did you get a haircut? You didn't cut your hair?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Carl, you just want me to run the roll? I'm joking. One member, what about the other 7 on the committee?
Oh, no matter where you set it's gonna be right there. No. Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, I always just set up front because of that. Still in the way. Yeah, I mean, I can't see like a couple of ways. So we good.
Colonel, how are you?
Good.
I did the other one. Yeah. Yeah, no. We get to 8 a.m. and then yeah, I went out and the Dakota are like.
You just see the same photos? I mean, not just, photos of the party.
Yes, all to go in an hour.
Oh, I guess with traffic.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I had 8 a.m. classes in Columbia. I went to Mizzou. Yeah.
See who shows up.
Yeah.
And I started at 9 a.m. And I get it takes me about 45 minutes. So it's like parking lot over there. So I like parking supplies.
And Mona, so my fault is, see that?
They do have names too. They have names as well. Yeah. Yeah. You're just like, what's going?
Party of one. Carly, you know where he's at?
He was.
He's like 20. Yeah, no good. You decided. You consider yourself a dog before.
Yes, I did. You have to range one.
Yeah, that's.
You let me go.
How are you this morning?
Thank you, Chris.
I was wondering, and really trying to think of something story.
You're right about this in time for days to that two things I'm trying to get done. This lady, will call me back, one calls me back like 10 minutes till 11. That's where it's.
He was.
When she climbed, she did the bag.
We've had that conversation. Can't do my day. Really?
I'm not suggesting anything. All I do is report.
That would be a great story.
Well, it might,
Yeah.
there might be something to that. So, but there's one thing that's down there. It's about power appropriate. Sulfur county. This is what they say. Marginal dollars. It's the same, you make the same argument based on. Binary versus their numbers. So, that's pretty significant. Of those dollars, but it's not a, that's not it's the same impact. It's, you get 427 million or 426 million next year. So, that's a good question. I think it's not.
We'll now call the hearing on urban issues to order. Seeing that we don't have a quorum, we'll move into a subcommittee to discuss issues at the University of Missouri system, as well as the University of Missouri-Columbia. With that, first up, we'll have Ms. Ellington. We want to start by saying thank you all for attending. Part of the reason why we're having this hearing is because I was once a student at the University of Missouri Columbia, and we had several issues during my tenure as a student, and we've had them from time to time. And just last May, the Black Caucus actually met with the former Chancellor, Mr. Middleton, the MSA President, Vice President, and some other members of the Mizzou leadership team. And at that meeting, I went through the issues that members of my organization experienced as a student, which calls for the Collegiate 100 chapter to do some things at the University of Missouri's campus to promote unity and togetherness and to address the issues that weren't seemingly being addressed by the university. Sadly enough, that was 11 years ago. And in that meeting, I also stated that the reason why we don't get progress or results from the university is because the game that's played is one of new students come in every year. And with the new students coming in every year, it's hard to hold people accountable because the students aren't organized or together enough in order to keep the university's feet to the fire. I said that in front of the former chancellor and our current president Middleton and the students. I'm not sure what the students did with that information, but it seems like it would have been a great opportunity to make sure that we didn't have the issues that transpired. The second meeting I had was in October at the Chancellor's tailgate, where I spoke with the former president as well as the former board chair and talked about the issues and the lack of responsiveness to the issues. And now here in April, we are still, certain members of the Black Caucus are still waiting for information. I'm assuming some of that information may be in this binder that we have today, but a lot of this information was requested in November. How it takes that long to gather information, I don't know. But with that, Ms. Henriksen, thank you for coming. And I will work with you in terms of your timing. I do appreciate you coming. Through a conversation that we had, I think you weren't going to attend initially. And if you could enlighten us as to why you didn't plan to attend, that would be.
I have a speaking engagement at noon, and I thought the timing was a little close.
Gotcha. So
I'm still concerned about that.
Okay, we'll get you out of here before that. So I think your specific statement to me was that you guys had a conversation, or this was actually an email. You all had a conversation and you said that there were people better suited to answer the questions with regard to the line of questions that I had.
I'm sure that's true.
And why is that?
Well,
given that you're the chair.
I'm not on campus full time.
So does the University of Missouri system have any duty to trying to rectify the issues that have come up at the University of Missouri Columbia, or?
Certainly, and we're working diligently to get that done, but I'm not on campus every day.
So what, I guess, what role does the University of Missouri system play in terms of making sure that the campus climate is one that's welcoming and inviting for all students?
Well, that primary responsibility belongs with campus leadership. And certainly the system leadership should provide support and assistance, whether that be resources or financial or guidance to make that possible. But the primary responsibility belongs to the campus.
How long have you been a member of the board?
6 years.
6 years, and is this your first time to be chair?
Yes.
It is. Would you say that in your 6 years of tenure that the university or the board has done the things that you just said their role is?
Well, I think so, yes.
Okay.
But you asked me about the system.
Sure. The system's role. So if the system has a role in terms of making sure that things operate a certain way to keep the system in a high level of regard, then the system can either do some things or the system can try to do more just to make sure that we alleviate the problems and concerns of the students that seem to come up time and time again. I guess in your tenure, were you around when the cotton ball incident happened?
No, sir, I was not.
You were not. Have you been around during any of the incidents that have taken place with regard to race and whatnot at the University of Missouri Columbia?
Well, certainly I was on the board last November, yes.
Gotcha. This is a free-flowing deal. Just trying to get some information. So if you have anything, Representative Alfred, feel free just to chime in. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Henriksen. We'll now have President Middleton.
Are you through with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning. President Middleton, thank you for attending. You may know this, but I've recently become increasingly more critical of the position that you've held and the current position that you hold. And specifically because we're still waiting for information. And how long did you have a position with regards that dealt with diversity at the University of Missouri Columbia?
That's a broad question. I had a position that dealt directly with diversity for about a year.
Just 1 year?
Yeah.
What other positions did you have at the University of Missouri Columbia?
Deputy Chancellor,
And what was your primary duty as Deputy Chancellor?
assisting the Chancellor in running the university.
And did you have direct oversight, or and to what regard did you deal with diversity in that position as Deputy Chancellor?
We had an office, we had a chief diversity officer who oversaw the Chancellor's diversity initiative.
Who was that individual?
Roger Worthington.
And the person today is who?
Nor Azizan-Gardner. But we have created, the campus has created a new position called interim Vice Chancellor for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And
That's
what?
Chuck Henson.
Gotcha. So what is the difference between what Ms. Noor was doing and what the new position will do? And the only reason I'm asking is because of your knowledge of the University of Missouri Columbia.
The new position will be doing a lot more. They are restructuring diversity activities on campus. And so while Noor was primarily responsible for programming, and she had a person, Noah Language, who worked with faculty hiring and faculty search committees, and investigating and resolving complaints of bias on campus, and bias incident report, for example. The diversity on campus was somewhat disjointed and siloed. I have organizations on campus, some in student affairs, some in athletics, some in the academic side, programs in various colleges around campus.
Sure.
So she was a part of trying to coordinate all of that and assist those who were doing that kind of work. What the campus has now done is brought all of that under one umbrella, one organizational structure, which Chuck Henson can explain to you when he gets his turn. Nor was a part of a much larger but uncoordinated system of providing support around campus for these kinds of diversity activities.
When was that office created? Not the new one, but the one that
CDI.
Sorry?
CDI, Chancellor's Diversity Initiative.
Sure.
And, I don't recall, sometime in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so diversity wasn't your main, one of your main, I guess, responsibilities as the Deputy Chancellor. Was there anybody else that was equipped to deal with the, I guess, the diversity issues that was also the Deputy Chancellor?
There was only one Deputy Chancellor, that was me.
And did the, I guess,
And all the Vice Chancellors had responsibilities.
did anyone have specific responsibilities with regard to diversity, inclusion, and campus climate?
No.
Gotcha. And how many of those other Vice Chancellors, I suppose, were African Americans? Just a ballpark.
None. I'm trying to see if I can. Andy Williamson was a vice provost for international programs.
Sure.
The international programs involve some diversity work. Obviously, when you bring in students from around the world, we try to integrate them into the fabric of our campus. So I suppose you could say, in a sense, that Andy had diversity responsibilities. But at that time, everyone had diversity responsibilities, which is a part of the problem. There was no one in charge. Coordinating all that.
During your tenure, do you think it may have made sense, or you think, did anyone, I guess, propose combining all of those efforts under one umbrella prior to them?
Yes,
And
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Roughly when?
I think I started doing that probably 30 years ago, even when I wasn't in the position, even when I wasn't Deputy Chancellor. I did that when I was a law professor.
So as the Deputy Chancellor, I suppose that you didn't, they didn't obviously take the advice. And it could have prevented some issues. Do you think that's possible, or?
It's possible. It's also possible that it wouldn't prevent it.
What?
Well, you just don't know how things will work out correctly. It seems logical to me to have a dedicated unit focused on doing this kind of work. But I don't discount the theory that when you consolidate this in one place, in an organization as large as the University of Missouri, people on the ground, people who have day-to-day contact with students and faculty and constituents, will view it as the job of that unit to do this work, and therefore they don't have to do anything. That's kind of a common problem in organizations this large.
Sure.
So there are two ways to go. Either you put it all together and consolidate it under one umbrella, or you try to work with all those units that have responsibilities for day-to-day activities and have them do the work, help them do the work. That latter approach is the option that was taken on campus during the time that I was Deputy Chancellor.
Representative Alford?
I guess, to inquire,
Proceed.
I guess I'm curious on after the turmoil hit the Columbia campus last year. I mean, going forward after the steps that have been taken already, how have, in the short time that we've seen, how have those programs been progressing, and how have they been developing to rectify the problems?
I think very well. Chuck Henson, the interim Vice Chancellor, has much more detail on what's happening at the campus level. But at the system level, we've hired a Chief Diversity Officer who will be coming on board June 1st, Kevin McDonald. A person who's got some significant experience in doing this work, diversity work. We've got a task force, system level task force, headed by David Mitchell, a law professor on the Mizzou campus, that is doing work with all 4 campuses to try to determine a strategy, a long-term strategy for incorporating this work on all 4 campuses and determining what kind of resources that the system can provide to support that plan. We are negotiating right now with the national firm to do a system-wide audit of all diversity programs on all 4 campuses and the hospital. Campus climate surveys will be a part of that audit. So at the system level, we're pulling together the background information and the data that's going to be very helpful in guiding us into the future. When Kevin McDonald hits the ground on June 1st, we hope to have a significant amount of data accumulated already and plans developed or in development by that task force, and task forces that will be established on each campus to feed into that system task force. This kind of organizational change takes time and effort. All too often, we have a lot of good ideas, a lot of little programs that get established that really aren't coordinated. And I think that's a part of our history. When I was on campus, much of the diversity work, because we were having serious budgetary issues, were funded by grant money. So a faculty member in biological sciences would hear about a grant from the National Science Foundation to advance minorities in higher ed. They get a grant and they start a program in their department. And the principal investigator on that grant was running it. The principal investigator on that grant was a faculty member who was not connected to chief diversity officer, was supervised by his or her department chair, who was supervised by his or her dean, who was supervised by his or her provost. So it was very difficult to have a coordinated, sustained, or sustainable effort, because when that grant ran out, the program died. We're trying to pull all of that together in a comprehensive, cohesive, system-wide approach to dealing with these issues. But yeah, we've done some significant work in the last 4 months to move us in that direction.
So I noticed that you said that a lot of the activity was funded by grants and such, but time and time again, I think we're on track to raise more than $1 billion again. During my tenure, we raised $1 billion through different initiatives and whatnot. Did anyone ever try to raise money outside of grants, or in the same vein that we raise money to support the university for these issues and efforts?
Yes.
And what happened with that initiative?
I don't recall. We got a couple of scholarship programs. The name is slipping my mind now, but we got a couple of significant endowments for scholarships, I believe in the journalism school and business school. But I hate to say that's it, because I don't want to insult a generous donor who has supported something for us. But compared to the $1 billion campaign, what we got for diversity-specific programming was a very limited amount of support.
Sure. So I'm trying not to make any broad generalizations, but we're doing a lot now, but we've had issues before. Specifically when I was there, then the Cotton Bowl incident, we keep having issues. And you were the deputy chancellor. Did the chancellor ever ask you what would be a better way? And I mean, I'm assuming that he did. And did they just choose not to?
Both chancellors that I was deputy to did. And
Eden and Wallace?
Eden and Wallace. And we simply weren't able to build the structure that I thought was necessary from a resource perspective and from an organizational perspective. that meant taking things away from others in the organization. There are many priorities of the university, and I simply was unable to get the organization to make the shift that I thought it needed to make to be more effective.
And do you feel that you have what it takes to do that now, even though you're in the interim position?
I believe I do.
If you have any, information to share the timeline in terms of how we can do that, that would be greatly appreciated. So we have task force on each individual campus, and they're going to feed into a larger system-wide auditor plan. When were the task forces created?
I'm not certain that the task forces on the campuses have been created. The system task force was created a couple of months ago. In January, we established the system task force. And I think they have met on 2 of the campuses with campus level people. I think the other 2 campuses are coming this month. So it's in progress.
So I guess part of, and I do have a lot of history with this, specifically for the last, I guess, almost 18 months now. In December of 2014, I was on Twitter, and there was a forum of some sort taking place at the University of Missouri, and the student asked, and this was after Ferguson and everything, they said, what is the campus doing with regard to diversity? And one of Mizzou's administrators stood up and said that not enough. And I was livid when I saw that on Twitter, and I tweeted, asked, about Dr. Roger Worthington's work in the campus climate studies and such. And it seems like we just keep having the same issues. And what we did see this year is that the university system, though it's not supposed to take a leadership role, I suppose, doesn't seem to have a sense of urgency with regard to the diversity issues. And what I mean by that is that we moved to protect the budget. We moved to remove Professor Click, and yet I have a list of 11 items that the Black Caucus has requested, and we still haven't received those items. So much so that I had to say on the floor, and I actually said this to Mr. Otting as well, do I need to become a Republican to get you all to be responsive to me? That was a serious question.
I don't think you need to do that. I think that we are doing our best to be responsive to you. I saw a recent memo that I thought was responsive to your request.
When was that? As I started making requests right before Thanksgiving.
I saw it this morning. It's in this book. I think it's been provided to you. I don't fully understand your question. I'm sure you're not suggesting that we should not have been working to restore our budget.
No, I would never suggest a thing, but I think given that we had Thanksgiving break, we had the winter break, I worked through the Thanksgiving break to provide you the 3-page plan because the issue is that important, and I saw that I failed in having the meeting with you, Chancellor Wallace, and Provost Deaton 10 years prior at that time. So I wasn't going to let this time pass again, and then I actually have to sit here again potentially in 10 years, hopefully on the other side of the body. And even with spring break, I know you all had plans and whatnot. That's when we attempted to have a meeting and no one was able to attend. So it just seems like we've taken opportunity after opportunity to what, in my opinion, seems to be to let the fire kind of die down so that you could manage things as opposed to acting swiftly, because that's what a lot of minority students would have appreciated. And I think that's why we're going to lose even more students in the future, because we haven't been swift in terms of dealing with these issues. We've had them a number of times over the past 15 to 20 years, and we're still here again. And you were in a position, I thought, as the Deputy Chancellor to really weigh in on things and to make things happen. So I specifically take issue with you being the president now, and it's only because I haven't seen the action or the fight. So the next question is, In terms of the chancellor not listening or not being willing to act because of a lack of resources, to what level or what extent did you go to make these things happen?
I don't quite understand how I am to respond to that. One, I didn't say the chancellor did not listen. I said that I was unable to convince the chancellors to take an approach that I personally thought was more appropriate. They listened quite well. And they did what they thought they needed to do.
So was there
what
a
they
continued
did.
sense of urgency with regards to putting the,
Sorry, say that again.
was there a consistent request made to ask for those things to be done because of what benefits it would provide to the University of Missouri system, and to the state of Missouri? Or was it just, I did request that they help and they decided not to?
There comes a point in time in an organization when the chancellor or the president moves in one direction that you stop naysaying.
Do you?
Yes.
I wouldn't.
Well, we're different people, Representative Curtis, with all due respect.
Go ahead, Representative.
Just for a point of clarification, you said you had a list of 11 questions that you and the Legislative Black Caucus have addressed. Do you have a list of those?
Yes, we can provide you.
And then furthermore, which ones have not been answered?
So we're still waiting on the budget over the past 10 years, broken down by department, plus the expenses and equipment. Still waiting to see what
Budget for the entire system, or?
No, that's for the University of Missouri Columbia. These are things that have been requested as I believe as early as December. We still don't know Chuck Henson's budget and what his staff will look like. That was requested in November at a meeting where the president was present, as well as the provost, and I was told that I would have that information within a week. That was by the provost, and we still don't have the information.
Yeah.
As of the last meeting with the Black Caucus and Mr. Henson, I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago, he said that he still didn't have a budget and didn't know what the number of the staff would be. If I'm wrong, you'll have an opportunity to correct me when you get up here, Mr. Henson. In addition to that, there are 7 other items, but we'll share that with you. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
And none of these, they have not met with you or the Legislative Black Caucus?
They've met, they have been unresponsive in fulfilling those requests. And that's why when we talked about the budget on the floor, when I said the things I did, because they were clearly responsive to the issues with regard to the budget and Ms. Click, which is only solving a symptom as opposed to trying to solve the problem. Mr. President, with regard to the vacancies on the board, I believe you have at least two curators and 1 student curator. Have those seats been filled?
No.
Have you requested that those seats be filled? Have you requested the governor to do that?
No, that's a board matter. And I believe that the chairman, I believe the chair of the board has requested that those positions be filled.
Gotcha.
That's not the president's function.
And Mr. Chairman, in fairness, I've requested many times of the governor to make appointments into my counties as well. That the appointment of the board of curators is left up to the governor, and it is solely on his shoulders for the lack thereof of appointments, in my opinion.
Sure. No, I would not.
We currently have there's 3 board of curator vacancies, 3 board of curator vacancies, but over 1,500 vacancies statewide on that. So,
sure,
that is the governor's inaction on that one. I would just like to point out.
Right, I'll give you that. The reason why I asked that question is simply because right now there seems to be a lack of diversity on the board of curators. And in a trying time like this, where we're trying to create comprehensive plans and make decisions, you would think that by at least having the student viewpoint there would be necessary. Secondly, by having a different minority opinion other than the one, is it just one female on the board?
Yes.
So we have a lack of diversity on the board of curators currently, but we're trying to deal with the issues that hinge on race and diversity and lack of inclusion.
Chairman, sure, real quick, the vacancies that we have on the board, do you know which congressional districts they're vacant from?
I don't know that. They're both in the St. Louis area.
Both in the St. Louis area? Okay.
First,
They're both, I'm sorry, they're both in
at
the
least
first?
one is the first one, sure, but I'm.
Okay. And one in Columbia. So two in St. Louis, one in Columbia.
Okay, so from the third congressional and the first congressional. I think that plays a big part in who you're actually going to be able to get to fill those positions as well. If we're looking at it from in terms of diversity, there's just by the population of that exists, it's going to be hard in a more rural area to probably find a little bit more diversity, I would say.
Yeah, except for the fact that we, Mr. Stewart and the other young lady, they were both from the first. And, so I mean, we do have an abundance of minorities that are fully capable.
I agree.
I just wanted to see if the president, but since he says it's not his role, that's the board's role, just documenting things.
There's a sheet in the package that was submitted to you that identifies the congressional districts. St. Louis, West and Central Missouri, and an at-large seat.
With regard to the new unit that's being formed, I believe earlier you said that the role that took place is that we had a couple of different places. You took the latter role in terms of working on diversity at the University of Missouri Columbia, and now they're going to create a central department. How do you see that from your experience? And that's why I'm asking you more questions. From your experience, how do you see that being potentially successful, or what do you see as the potential downfall to that?
Well, my hope is that it will be successful. If you have strong leadership and sufficient resources and a good plan and support from the highest levels of the institution, I think it has a good chance to be successful. That's not to suggest that it will solve all problems that we have in this country surrounding diversity and inclusion, but it will be, it will get us, it will move us forward. The other approach, I mean, the downfall of that approach is, like I said, that everyone else who's not in that unit will breathe a sigh of relief and not pay any attention to these issues. I suspect that consolidating things in one unit will be successful.
Is Miss Gardner here? Is she here today? No, she's not here.
I don't believe so.
Okay. And is she the chair of the Chancellor's Diversity Committee? Is that our initiative? Have you guys?
I would want to defer to.
Sure. No, I was trying to line something up, so I was just seeing if she was present. So with regard to the campus climate survey, and I know when we had the Joint Committee on Education meeting, we had a conversation, and I want to ask you to share anything that you can't share. It was my understanding, the last one, I actually participated in that one, that the way it was explained to me as a student, and I was involved because of my role as the president of the Collegiate 100 and what we did on campus after one of the incidents, was that was going to provide a framework for dealing with the issues. And I believe your statement was, it was to identify the issues, but not necessarily it wasn't to come up with a comprehensive plan, but to identify them and do what specifically. Just trying to see what if we're about to do another campus climate survey, then I want to make sure that it's beneficial and meaningful as opposed to something that's being used to continue to study the problem. We know some of the problems.
Well, you know, the point of a campus climate survey is to provide information on how students are experiencing the campus. from a variety of perspectives, a variety of groups. And they're generally designed to provide longitudinal data. So you do a survey this year, and you identify areas where there are problems. You work on those problems. You do another survey a couple of years later. You compare the data to determine whether you've had any impact on the climate as perceived by the students. And you continue to do those surveys as you work to resolve the problem.
So when you were there, that was done, I'm assuming, did we have an impact?
That was done a couple of years when I was there. I think there was some marginal impact. The last survey, the data was we were unable to analyze the data at the time that the survey was done. I understand we retrieved it now, and it's being analyzed as we speak. But the campus climate survey is not a solution to any problem. The campus climate survey is sort of a barometer of what's happening on campus and where there needs to be some attention paid.
Can you not develop a solution from the findings, though?
Yeah, of course.
And would you say that during your tenure that was done?
Yes.
And in what manner? Was there a report created, or was there a comprehensive plan created, or was there another initiative that was started? With this level of detail, I would have hoped that Azizan-Gardner would be here to answer those questions. I as well. We did request that she attend, and we passed on the information with regard to our request for the subpoenas. That was my understanding.
Chuck Henson can answer that question.
Sure, we'll get to that. And the reason why I'm asking about that, did you have any direct involvement with Nora's hiring?
Yes.
In what capacity?
I hired Nora. Nora was, well, I inherited Nora. She had been working in the Office of the Vice Provost for Minority Affairs. And when we created the Chancellor's Diversity Initiative, I inherited that staff.
So she reported directly to you?
She reported directly to me.
So in terms of making sure that the findings were, I guess, available and that we could create solutions and additional items after researching them, that information would have eventually come to you and we would have known what to do because she reports to you.
Well, she reported to me until I hired the Chief Diversity Officer, Roger.
Was that?
Then she reported to Roger.
And then after he left the university, she assumed his position, is that it?
On an interim basis, I believe, yes.
And was that the same interim position that was in December of 2014, or was that different?
I don't know what you mean.
In 2014, when the statement was made that we're not doing enough with regards to diversity from the administrator, I looked for Roger and I was directed to Nora. And that was at the time when she said that we were having a conversation about why nothing was being with diversity. She said that there was it's a constantly moving needle. And then she went on to say that Title IX and diversity couldn't be handled at the same time, to which my response was, I can imagine that if I were the senator asking about diversity, that, we would, do things with that as well, but that wasn't the case. What I'm referring to is that Senator McCaskill came out, with regard to the issues that happened with the swimmer. And I think you all had the Title IX issue. And from our conversation, she said that all excess funds that were available on campus were shifted over to the Title IX issues that you guys had to deal with. And so there wasn't any additional money for diversity. And that's the specific reason why I asked for the budget for the past 10 years, so I could show, or at least see, if the university has been committed to diversity, because it seemed that in that case, when you got the spotlight and attention again, that you did everything possible. And unfortunately, it was at the expense of diversity. And that's why I said, can't you do those together?
Yes.
Seems that they go hand in hand, but that wasn't the response that I was given.
Well, they do go hand in hand. A part of the reorganization on that campus was to put the Title IX office under this umbrella that Chuck Henson is in charge of.
Which is why I did want Ms. Nora here, because if she said that you can't do them at the same time, and now we're making that decision.
Well, if she said that, I don't know why she said that.
I said that actually at the meeting in May, but
Obviously, you can't do them both at the same time. In fact, we're doing them at the same time. The Title IX office has been renamed the Office for Civil Rights and Title IX. That office has investigators that investigate charges of discrimination under all of the policies and all the legislation that prohibits discrimination, including Title IX. So, yeah, I mean, it can be done together, and they're doing it together.
I hear you. I mean, I would have thought that was possible, but given that she was the chief diversity person and that was her comments, but
I suspect there was miscommunication there. I don't.
No, it was very clear. I mean, we had a conversation. Actually, we had a couple of conversations, but in that conversation, that was simply what was said, nearly verbatim.
There was a significant infusion of resources at that time to build the Title IX infrastructure.
Where did the resources come from?
From the system, as I recall.
Gotcha. Do you, you don't have to answer this now, but if we could get the information in terms of what amount of resources were delivered, that would be great, just to see if we're providing the same attention to these issues that we did to Title IX when Senator McCaskill shined the light on it.
I don't recall it now. I wasn't at the system at the time.
That's fine. I think they would have records of the information with regards to the infusion. And just to be respectful of your time, I do appreciate you coming and thanking you. So the last question, the board chair said it's up to the campus leadership for a number of things. And you said that with regard to the unfilled positions on the board of curators, that's a board issue as opposed to your issue. So I guess in your position, this will be my last question for you. How do you set the tone and direction for the system's dealings with diversity and inclusion going forward? And with that, are we waiting on the individual to get here in June? Because I know that you all said that you're interims. And I fully believe that interim just means that you're there for the time, but you have the full rights and responsibilities of the position. So it doesn't mean we have to wait. So in setting the tone and direction, how do you do that? And does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, and I understand what you're saying. A lot of people think that interim disables you in getting the job done. I don't do that for a minute. Interim means for the time being, you are the president, or you are the chancellor, or you are the vice chancellor for diversity and inclusion. And we all intend to do this work as hard as we can, as quickly as we can, and as efficiently as we can. I talk to all 4 chancellors on a regular basis. I created the task forces. I'm hiring the auditor to do the system-wide audit and the campus climate surveys. I talk to the board about these issues on a regular basis. I've gotten them to understand the importance of doing this work. This is my top priority at the moment. We're not slowing down. We're speeding up. As soon as I understand what our final budget is going to be, I will then determine how much of that I can put into this effort. I'm working to try to develop private sources of funding for this effort. That's what I do as interim president. I try to support the campuses, and I try to motivate the campuses, and I try to lead the campuses in doing what needs to be done. And I think from my position, I'm able to do that much better than I could as deputy chancellor on one of the campuses.
Actually, I have plenty more questions, but as I stated, that would be the last question. So thank you for coming. I just want to leave you with one. the task forces, you did say that you created them. I think you also said earlier that you don't think that two had met. If we could potentially encourage them to meet, because now is the time. At the Joint Committee on Education, you begged for more time, and it's the university has a lot of work to do. The system has a lot of work to do, and I just ask that we do more, because now is the time. And with regard to the audit, if you could provide us some information with regard to what the audit would entail, just to get an overview of what we're looking for and what we can potentially get from that, that would be greatly appreciated. But I do thank you for your time. And
so, somewhere around here, there's the schedule when those other two campus level task forces will meet. And it's in the very near future. I had another thought as you were talking, but it escapes me now. I appreciate you here. I want you to understand, I'm very serious about this. I was a student at Mizzou at one time myself. I had the same experiences that you had as a student there. This is important, this is serious. And we're trying to approach it in a way that will be effective and sustainable into the future. Someone left a pair of glasses here.
thank you. And if you could just fill out the witness form, that would be greatly appreciated, or have someone do it for you. With that, thank you. Mr. Henson, and then we'll go to Mr. Miller. I'm assuming that Mr. Foley is not here, correct?
Correct. Would you like me to join Chancellor?
Sure. Mr. Henson, do you know what your budget and staff looks like yet?
I don't have that information finalized, but we'll turn to the tab, our diversity office chart in the binder. You'll see what the division currently looks like. And as the president referred, what we're doing is realigning resources and centralizing things that should be centralized, so that in many respects, you don't have to go all over Mizzou to find what you need to find. And so the Office of Civil Rights and Title IX has taken all of the, for lack of a better word, discrimination complaint duties on. And because it makes sense for that equity office to be part of a division of inclusion, diversity, and equity, now that office runs up through the Vice Chancellorship that I'm fulfilling an interim role in. What was the Chancellor's Diversity Initiative, and that was Nora Azizan-Gardner's, and the names haven't changed quite yet, but what was the Chancellor's Diversity Initiative now reports up to me. And you'll see that Pat Ivy is working with me, as well as Donnell Young, with the working title of Assistant Vice Chancellor. But Mr. Young actually is the Director of Academic Retention Services. And we believe that's a very important relationship to have between the division and campus, particularly with respect to issues of retention of underserved minority students.
Do you see a potential conflict with having Mr. Young serving the dual positions as a former transition student that participated in academic retention services to take on that role and lead it, given that they've had funding cuts, or I guess, funding cuts, and then assuming this new position, would it not be better for you all to have someone else?
I don't see any conflict. In fact, it seems to be a synergy to me, if I understand the question correctly, related to the idea that we have an issue and a concern about retention of underserved minority students. And Mr. Young, after a national search to fill the directorship of ARS, was the candidate that was selected. He is working on improving existing programs and implementing new programs. And if I might, I can talk about some of those things.
We'll get to it in a second. I do appreciate that. I guess what I'm saying is giving him a new position. The ARS role is critical and crucial to the success of students. If he has to split his duties between that and whatever your office needs him to do, it just seems that he may not be able to give his full attention, though he would bring additional information, but that information could be shared with you in a reporting role as opposed to taking on a secondary role within your office. Mr. Milner, if you could, given that you're sitting in for the Chancellor, what has been done to change the campus climate, specifically with regard to my request about Dr. Scroggs and Dr. Lucas, who both work in student affairs and student life, and I see as the main individuals responsible for the campus climate.
Sure. So I would like to get into that further. I want you to know that after the discussion was had with the Chancellor when he was down here in January, he went back to campus and looked into that matter as a personnel matter, and so not something that I can comment on any further.
How is it a personnel matter? I mean, it's, if you want to change the campus climate.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the complaint specifically.
Well, no, the complaints are different, but in this environment where you have those two individuals who've been there for at least 16 years, and they've been in place when all of these incidents have happened, if you wanted to change the tone and direction, or even the outlook and perception of the campus, that's the easiest move to make. We moved to get rid of Professor Click, but we haven't moved on this.
Right. Again, I don't
they wouldn't lose their positions as teachers. They would just lose their positions as the Vice Chancellor and whatever the other position is.
Right. So I know that he received and read your recommendation that he reassign their duties. I don't have a particular response right now, other than I know that the Chancellor has placed an incredible amount of emphasis on the work that Chuck is doing to ensure that the climate changes, because climate trumps strategy every time. And
so we're waiting though.
Well, I don't think that we're waiting.
But we're waiting because it hasn't happened. We made the request nearly 2 months ago, and when we said we wanted a response by noon on a certain day, the response back through email was that the Chancellor was traveling, to which my comment was he doesn't check email while traveling.
Okay, I will look into a response. I believe that we've done that, but
do you not think it's possible? I mean, if you want to change the climate, Mr. Henson can continue to, I guess, wait for his final budget and make preparations, but do you not feel that if they are in charge of the campus climate, that leaving them in place sends the wrong message?
Well, they're responsible for a lot of things.
Student affairs and student life.
Right.
Which is the bulk of campus climate. Athletics is something separate.
Okay. I think there's an educational component in there with the climate that is a big piece of this puzzle. So I don't know that I have a answer for you about reassigning their duties right now.
I would love to know when you all plan to make that change, to change the campus climate. The reason why I'm bringing that up is simply, as a Mizzou student, when you first set foot on campus, you walk through the columns. And then upon graduation, you walk back through the columns. That's setting the tone for the students. So we can almost do the same thing with regards to diversity. And if I'm not mistaken, I would think that both Dr. Lucas and Dr. Scroggs would be there when the freshmen set foot on campus. So we could make that about diversity and respect, and making sure that every student that walks through those columns knows that we're here, we're part of the campus community, and we're supposed to respect each other. And that would send a strong message to each and every student that came through, just like walking through the columns currently does. It shows the goal is to walk back again upon graduation. And I don't know, you can enlighten me, have we ever done anything to that regard with regard to saying how we feel about diversity or how we should treat each other as students or members of the campus community?
I don't know for sure that we have. I know that moving forward, and I think Chuck can probably elaborate on this, that all incoming students, and I believe there's a move for new faculty and staff as well, will go through a diversity and inclusion training and add to that.
I will add to that. Representative Curtis, I understand the nature of your question. Has that been purposed in that way? I'm not aware that it ever has before. I can tell you that since I started working, I will beg to disagree that the entirety of the campus climate has been in the hands solely of student affairs. That I have been doing with a number of people all that I can do to work on improving how people treat each other by providing opportunities for them to learn about things like implicit bias and how that operates, and that training being delivered not only to administrators, but also faculty and students, as well as providing a specific lecture series on the African American experience in Missouri, so that we start to learn more facts about our history in the state, and the division supporting other speaking programs, and ultimately, in terms of I don't see my work so much as preparatory to a final outline of what the organization will be, or final determination of what the budget will be. I see it as getting some traction, getting some momentum, and given the magnitude of the issues, it's extremely difficult to establish a kind of visible, palpable changes that we all, I believe, we all desire. But I do believe that we do have some other programs in place that are also helpful, like the working group, to bring all student leaders together to look at what the division, what the campus is doing on a regular basis, and then provide their concerns and comments about that. And then I and the people that work with me take that back and put it into the mix of, all right, so how do we proceed in a better way?
Representative,
I just wanted to touch on kind of what you were talking about. I mean, I think getting all these programs in place is extremely helpful. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to have faculty and students that actually will want to invest themselves in diversity. And I don't know, what years were you at the University of Missouri?
99 to about 2006 with some stuff out there.
Okay, so 2006 was whenever I transferred to the University of Missouri. I just real briefly tell a story that my capstone class in 2008 for political science, and I wish I could remember the professor's name. I took all of it. I took 4 of his courses, and I don't believe he's no longer there at the University of Missouri. But first day of our capstone class, we met, and there was 25 or so students there, and we met, and he looked around the room and said, "We don't have a single African American student in this class." 15 minutes. I mean, we all just said our names, and it's a capstone class, so it's pretty important. And he looked around and said, "Okay, prepare for an email this afternoon," and then he walked out. And I thought that was extremely weird, and I didn't know really what he was getting at. That professor then moved the location where we were going to be meeting to the African American Student Union, and for the remainder of that semester, we met there. And what it did was it infused us into a diversity system to where we as non-African American students, we probably wouldn't have walked through the door there. So what it did was it definitely opened my eyes and gave me a different perspective from in terms of diversity and inclusion as well. So I want to point, the reason I bring that up is I want us to point out that there are professors and instructors at the University of Missouri that are doing the right things, and that I think having these programs in place and making the faculty aware of these programs is going to, I mean, to a certain extent, I think it just needs some time to kind of flourish and kind of get larger organically as well. But making sure that we have the programs in place going forward, I think is going to be beneficial.
Sure. I guess with that, one question, given that we've had a number of incidents since, well, even before the 90s, why does it make sense to do it now and not in one of the previous occurrences? They're doing all of this now. Does it make sense that they would have done it the last time that we had?
Oh, I think it absolutely makes sense to do it. You know, I wish this stuff would have been started probably 20 years ago, but I can't go back. I mean, we as legislators also can't go back and say, well, you didn't do this at the time 5, 10 years ago, where some of these people weren't even around the university. But I think that, I guess the point I'm trying to get at is let's see what we can do going forward and try to rectify some of those problems. So though we don't repeat the problems of the past, but I don't know if it's helpful to hinge sometimes on what happened 5 or 10 years ago whenever we're going forward. I agree with you. I mean, to a certain extent, you know, I do question why it's starting now, but I think also having a national media presence on the issues definitely puts the urgency at the forefront.
So definitely, I appreciate all of the sentiments. We did have, I guess, national exposure with the incident of the swimmer that passed. And the reason why I bring it up is to provide context. So some of those individuals are still there. Mr. Middleton spent a lot of time at Mizzou, and now he's the system president. So to say that we can't talk about the past, the reason we talk about it is because he was there. And that's specifically why I said, what did you do, or to what extent did you push for the changes? You know to what extent I'll push for the things that I'm passionate about and the things that I think are needed. So I just wanted to see, because we have him in the position of setting the tone.
Well, he's certainly in that role now. I mean, just like the role that I'm in as a freshman legislator, I'm not the speaker, so I don't get to make the choices of what legislation moves forward or not. Much to the chagrin of myself, that I would love to have all my legislation to move forward, but I'm not in that position to advance it like that. So
does that mean that you don't fight, Bill?
No. I mean, it means I still fight for my positions and try to make the best position of it, just like you're doing here today. But I would assume now that with Dr. Middleton in that position, now he actually is in the position to make a change, and I'm hopeful that, you know, going forward, we will make the changes that are necessary.
Sure. So, I mean, with that, it's just looking at past behavior and just trying to see how things would be different to make sure that we can get there.
Representative Courtney,
yes,
may I talk about some of the new programming related to kind of...
Sure, I guess one question. So we did talk about staff and I guess the professors and such. They seem to be an integral role they could play an integral role in changing the climate of campus. And that's why we wanted the provost here. And I think, do we have what she's supposed to do? And the reason why I requested that she attends is because she is she's the only person that we're dealing with that's not in an interim position. And if the past is a precursor to the future, Provost Deaton became the next chancellor. Then I can speculate that we're trying to, I guess, protect her so that she can become the next chancellor. But the role that she plays is that she does have the relationships with the staff and faculty. And if we're going to make any meaningful change, we've already seen that just popping in a new chancellor doesn't change things. Because if the people on the ground, were to be against that person, then things happen. And that's largely why we lost the former chancellor. So in terms of having her a part of the discussion, it only makes sense because she's the one that can move potentially the staff and faculty. So is there a reason why she's not here, Mr. Miller?
I don't believe she was available this morning. I don't know.
Gotcha. I think we had this hearing notice for at least about 2.5 weeks, but so we are still requesting that she attend as well as Ms. Nora. We won't.
I beg your pardon. I can answer some of the questions with respect to the provost's guidance of deans and faculty. So the provost made it a requirement, for example, for staff, that they attending the implicit bias training. Then when we brought Ben Reese-Back, who's the Vice President for Institutional Equity at Duke and the Duke University Hospital System back, also made a requirement for deans and chairs to attend that training. The provost is working with the faculty and the faculty council on moving issues of inclusion and diversity forward. And I'm sure that you're aware of an effort by the faculty council to finally move forward a diversity curriculum requirement. The good news recently is that in the College of Arts and Sciences, there was an overwhelming vote in favor of their diversity curriculum requirement. So we do have we're generating the kinds of faculty support for diversity curriculum requirements as a general education, as part of the general education at the University of Missouri. And it seems to me that the provost is working well and working diligently to move those efforts forward.
How many colleges, I guess, are on the campus? You said that arts and sciences, how many more are there, Mr. Mildred?
There are 12 colleges.
So we got 1 out of 12
so far. Arts and Sciences by far reaches more students than any other
What
college.
percentage would you say, ballpark?
Well, something in the nature of 20%. And I'm excluding, the schools and colleges also include the professional schools, law school, med school, vet school.
Sure. Mr. Alferman, Representative Alferman seems to think that it may be more, so that's fine. I just wanted to ballpark.
I just thought that arts and sciences, arts and sciences is one of the largest schools on campus though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is the largest, yes.
And it may be a little more, I just want to be conservative.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was just asking those questions just to see what the, what the reach was. So 1 out of 12, but if it's the largest, then I'll give you credit for that. Earlier, with regard to the departments, what role does the Chancellor's Diversity Committee play in terms of actually changing stuff? Is that what's under your new office, or is that still going to remain separate? And if it is, what role does it play in terms of making changes?
So the Chancellor's Diversity Initiative, I'm not sure that I would describe its role as a role of making changes. The idea was that it was an initiative to address certain specific areas, and it has spent, my understanding, resources and time on creating a diversity and inclusion program, including diversity 101 training. There is a product that they produced with respect to civility and civility. They also are responsible for providing, in partnership, the Difficult Dialogues program was part of the Chancellor's Diversity Initiative. One of the main things that they have done and was the retention, faculty recruitment and retention under the FEED program. That's faculty.
Is that actually working? Because I believe there was an article maybe 3 weeks ago that said that it's hard for Mizzou to retain Black faculty specifically.
Well, it's hard. I think it is hard. It's hard for Mizzou to retain faculty, period. And when it comes to faculty of color, our competitors include places like Yale, Harvard, Stanford, other members of other elite research institutions. And that program has been in operation and continues to operate.
What level of support does it get? And that's why I asked for the budget again, just to see how we support those programs and initiatives. Because if we have someone that is potentially capable of teaching at an Ivy League institution, we have them, that says that they're not necessarily motivated by monetary gains. Okay, there's something more to that. So there's something that we're missing in terms of retaining that faculty that came here in the first place, to probably do what they, their life's work.
Right. So the FEED program is $600,000 a year. And in the first section of the binder, is the budget information that you've asked for. And you mentioned the fact that it's not just about money, and I agree with that. But part of the problem of the decentralized, centralized is that faculty retention and recruitment is largely has been a decentralized effort. And colleges and departments could come to the Chancellor's Diversity Initiative and apply for funding through the FEE program. And they have done and continue to do that.
So we typically use the entire $600,000 budget, or do we have money left over at the end?
So often there's money left over at the end, and then it's replenished, and the money remains with that hire throughout that faculty member's tenure with the university. When they leave, the money goes back to.
Oh, so it's not a one-time deal, it's an ongoing.
That's right. So to clarify, has it always been that way? No, it hasn't always been that way. Initially, the FEE program provided funding for the first 3 years. And I believe starting in 2006, the FEE funding is permanent for as long as that faculty member is here. But addressing the very important issue, how do you keep people here?
We do exit interviews with these individuals that leave to figure out what the issue is?
Yes. So exit interviews are done, are offered. No one is compelled to tell us why they're leaving.
So we don't have, I guess, a significant amount of data with regard to why.
I don't know that I would quantify the data. We do have data. And one of the elements of that data is a reflection that they didn't feel well taken care of.
So one of the statements that you made, and just let me know if you need anything, we've done things in a decentralized capacity, and now we're looking to do things in a centralized capacity. President Middleton stated that doing things in a centralized capacity could give people the impression that, well, that's the office that's in charge, or that has that responsibility, so we don't have to do anything. So in this role, given that you along with others are shaping it, how do you plan to mitigate any potential, I guess, feelings of a lack of responsibility with regards to the efforts, because they're now in a centralized office?
Okay, so let me clarify this issue of centralization. Before, there was a kind of complete decentralization. So if you were to have asked a question, all right, so what does the University of Missouri do with respect to faculty retention? Does every department at the University of Missouri have a retention plan for all new faculty? You'd have to go to every department within every college at the University of Missouri to get that information. The kind of centralization I'm talking about is making sure that there's a central repository for information like that, for instance. But it's not a level of control over how faculty make their decisions, but holding them more accountable.
So can we hold them accountable like that? It would seem that if we had one central person responsible, that would be the person that I would be calling to this meeting. But doing it in this manner, it still provides a way for people to pass the buck, which has been continually done, and that's why we're sitting here.
Well, I think that accountability is possible and likely, even though that the central administration, not being faculty, and therefore not being in control of voting on hiring and voting on things like promotion and tenure, still can be made accountable. And one of the ways to do that is to, and I believe that the provost is looking into, requiring each department to have a retention plan outline. Part of the FEE funding requests a retention plan, but and one of the modifications we're going to make to it is requiring a retention plan and then following up annually on the progress of those retention plans. We haven't done that before.
Is annually enough, or should we potentially do it quarterly or semi-annually?
Well, we certainly could do it semi-annually. I don't see, given the nature of the academic year, doing it quarterly.
It just seems that if you revisited the issue, prior to a year, would show that it's something that's important and raise expectations and hopefully the outcomes as well. Mr. Miller, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that, to sort of tying it all together as we talk about the FEED program and centralization versus decentralization and changing the culture. We sat with the provost recently to talk about this program, and one of the things that we have struggled with is department by department, whether or not the department chairs sort of proactively attempt to retain minority faculty or not varies significantly, right? And so in some cases, it's been the department chair's MO that they wait until their faculty member has an offer from another university before they offer what we can to match that offer. So I know that it is in the provost's goals to put an emphasis on proactively doing what we can to retain faculty so that we don't get into those situations. I think that's one of the areas where we try to figure out how to top down provide some structure and accountability. There was a significant gap there that we believe the provost will work to close, is already working to close.
Mr. Miller, with regard to changing the campus climate, one, what processes are in place to make sure that the campus is inclusive? And secondly, if student affairs and student life aren't the main two departments responsible for the campus climate, what other departments would be responsible for the campus climate?
Sure. Okay, so I think to answer the first question, I think Chancellor Foley has made it one of his major issues that we become more inclusive. I think one of the other reasons that we sort of find ourselves in this situation right now is that a lack of inclusion is one of our growing pains. So the university saw tremendous growth in the undergraduate population over the past 10 or 12 years. And I think probably like other institutions across the country, when diversity became the priority or a priority, we failed to take advantage of acculturating our students into what it means to be inclusive and respectful.
So we checked the box.
Sorry?
So we checked the box and said we're committed to diversity, but we didn't follow through.
Sure, and I wouldn't say that the University of Missouri is alone in that. I think higher ed has struggled with that.
But we're talking about the University of Missouri, the flagship institution.
Right.
And the reason, that's why we're here. I mean, so the committee is for urban issues. So anyone that comes from an urban environment, they are likely to possibly be moved to the University of Missouri, Columbia. And to say that it's a problem elsewhere doesn't say that we're leaders on the issue. And that is one thing that I require of anybody that calls himself a leader, is that they act like a leader and they carry themselves as a leader.
So, with the focus being on accessibility, we are now shifting that to equity and inclusivity. So, I don't know that I would put all of our emphasis on student affairs or student life, the people within student life. I think it starts at the top. So I know that the Chancellor, where he's sitting here today, and I apologize that he's not here, he apologizes he's not here, he would tell you that he is 100% behind the work that Chuck is doing as we're bringing together parts of student life, diversity issues, and Title IX, among other things, in an attempt to improve the student experience on campus for everyone.
Sure. So what other departments would you say? That was the second question.
What other departments?
Yeah.
I mean, all. I mean, if we're going to do this thing right, then everybody has to be on board and be pushing inclusivity and equity.
Sure, but with regard to, that makes sense, but there are key departments that actually, deal with the day-to-day campus life and climate. So are there other specific departments that we can point to that have a direct hand in that? Directly as opposed to indirectly. I'm just asking because it was said that those aren't the main two, or those aren't the only two organizations that are.
No, I'm right. I just mean to say that I wouldn't put the emphasis on them alone. I think, again, I go back to saying that I think if we're going to do it right, everybody has to be on board. So So you've got the educational component of the university, and the provost is working with Chuck to determine best practices for faculty so that as students enter their classes, that they feel that they've walked into a welcoming and inclusive environment, right, and a place where everything that they're going to learn, that there is a component of inclusion and respect in everything that we're teaching. And so that's why I think one of the things you referenced in one of your framework for inclusion was us establishing a Black alumni group, right, which has reemerged recently.
Yeah, quite a few that are popping up.
Right, and so that's, again, the Alumni Association falls under our Office of Development. Our Vice Chancellor for Advancement obviously is under the Chancellor, and so that is another top-down initiative that doesn't have to do with students on campus or student life or student affairs, but has to be part of our broad mission if we're going to change the culture.
Sure. I guess what I'm more so looking for is just people to point to. We know that top-down doesn't always work. In this regard, it's working, but only because international attention or national attention necessitated it. So in that, you have other cogs in the wheel that could either work for progress or they could potentially impede that progress. And if those individuals have been there and they haven't spoken up and said anything about the issues that the students have had to deal with or haven't addressed them in a meaningful way, mainly Dr. Scroggs is saying that when a student asked if there was going to be another forum to talk about the issues, and she said that we're not going to have another whatever fest. That doesn't set the tone that that's someone that is over student affairs is going to work with this plan, the new plan. And they've been there. So that's why I asked the question of President Middleton, how far did he go in his previous position? Because that's an indicator of how far he's willing to go now, specifically because he's retired. So he seemingly has nothing to lose except for, I guess, potentially being on the outs with the community that he's been a part of for years. So those things potentially allow a person to do things or not. And I just want to make sure that we're actually going to do something as opposed to, appearing to do.
And I think, I believe that we are. I think to say otherwise would probably make Chuck wonder what he's been doing for the past 6 months. So
yeah,
I understand where you're coming from.
Sure.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Does it seem like, so Title IX, civil rights, plus equity, inclusion, those are all complex issues to a certain extent. Would you agree?
I would certainly agree. So
Putting them all in one office, though there can be synergy created, does it not put us at a distinct disadvantage?
No, I don't think that's the case.
So it won't be too complex to deal with the issues, given that they're all complex individually.
That would be the position I would take. That's the position that's been taken at most institutions. That it does make sense for units working on equity issues and discrimination issues from a compliance perspective to be aligned with units working on training, developing training products, mentoring of faculty and staff, to be aligned with units working on retention and recruitment efforts of students, faculty, and staff. Yes, the issues are complicated because people are complex, and we have a complex history in this country. I'm sure, but it's not something that, from my perspective, means that there should be an isolation or a separateness. And in fact, not only working through the same office, but working across their offices is a very important part of the operation that I'm running.
Gotcha. Thank you. So the reason why I posed that again is just simply because I see that Ms. Nora will work in your office. And we did have the conversation where she said Title IX and diversity can't be done at the same time. So that's why I'm asking that, because this is one of the people that will inform you in terms of of certain things. responsibility. So if she was in a position previously and that was her line of thinking, I'm just trying to see how this is possible now. I get your outlook. I appreciate it, actually. I guess one question, given that we did have to shift our focus to Title IX when the senator weighed in on the debate, and it was at the expense of diversity. How do we balance things, going forward with all of these items in one office?
Well, I guess I have a couple of thoughts. I, as you know, wasn't present for whatever communication NOR had with you, Representative. My impression of NOR over the last 6 months has not been one of negation of any idea of moving all of these initiatives forward at the same time. In many respects, we are required to produce the chicken and the egg simultaneously, and we're working to do that as possible. My confusion it has to do with the issue of balancing one against the other, because they were never in opposition in my mind.
Sure.
There was these things went together in my mind and drive forward together.
Sure, I get it. It just hinges upon the fact that Mr. Middleton said he was responsible for her hiring, and she had that conversation with me, and it was only after an administrator at the university said we're not doing enough, and we're here. So along with the fact that I had to make several requests to get information, so it just seems like there's always a balancing act, and if you're on the diversity or that end of it, you get the short end of the stick. So with regards to the campus climate study, and we're wrapping up, Representative Alferman, if you have any closing questions or statements, please prepare those. With regards to the campus climate study, what steps will be taken after it's done, given that we are about to embark upon another one? And what things have been done to prevent, something happened with the data as you do the study, and then you do an update, something happened with that previously. What are we doing to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and what steps are we going to take afterwards to implement the findings?
Okay, thank you. So I'm glad you asked that question, Representative Curtis, because I wanted to make sure to clarify what is happening. So at the system level, as the President described, there is a system level task force. There is a system level audit of policies. And this kind of system-wide campus climate survey, of course, one of the campuses that will be surveyed is Mizzou. The idea being to do an audit of our policies with respect to diversity, inclusion, and equity, see what they are, see how they got in place, see how they're working, and then drill down to the campuses to see how policies are being implemented. It's one thing to have something written on paper, it's another thing entirely to see, okay, how does that work in reality? So as that is happening, the work of the campus climate survey will start to kind of feed into. So you're getting a look at the development and implementation of policies from the people that are responsible for the development and implementation of policies. And then a look from the perspective of people that those policies impact. And so Dr. Mitchell's task force then is meant to assist both of those efforts by recruiting from each campus members of campus-wide task forces on inclusion, diversity, and equity. So there is a system-level task force, and as Dr. Mitchell has moved from campus to campus, he has put out a call for membership in campus-level task forces to assist his effort and work on campus efforts. When the campus climate survey is finished, it's more than likely to be completed by Rankin, the Rankin group, which is preeminent in doing campus climate surveys across the United States for universities. We won't have an issue with what happened to the data because it's been perform, this survey is being performed by Rankin. And the idea, of course, with that data is to have it analyzed and then move forward with it. And I do understand your concern with the fact that there have been surveys in the past and questions about, well, all right, so then what did you do?
So do you not agree that that's a valid question?
I do agree that's a valid question.
And it seems like yeah, okay, good deal. So I'm looking at the budget and some of the numbers. I appreciate, having the breakdown now. I wish I could have had them before now, but thank you. It looks like the Black Culture Center has lost money over the 10-year period, just $13,000, so that's a lot. So does the faculty and staff of the Black Culture Center come up under potentially student life?
So at this point, well, they have heretofore. One of the, for a brief moment, talked about the plan for what the division ultimately looks like, is to bring the social justice centers, including the Black Culture Center, into division.
So that's the plan, but it's not from the outset?
It hasn't been announced and fully set yet. But yes, it has been, as all social justice centers have been, within student life.
Representative Curtis, if I may, I want to add just a couple things on the budget that I think will be helpful. If you take the snapshot of the FY 2006 Black Culture Center budget at 45,508 and the snapshot of it in FY 15 at 40, yes, you can draw the conclusion that it has lost money, but the way that the budget is actually, the way the budget operates for organizations like that is that they make a request at the beginning of the year, and I think over that 10-year span, it's fair to say that we've met that request each year. So if you look at FY 11, for example, the Black Culture Center hosted a Big 12 conference. I could get you all the details, but they hosted a conference at Mizzou and requested significantly more funding that year in order to do so. So you can see that that line is essentially $101,000. But I wanted you to have that information. I'm not sure.
Oh, sure. So I know what Big 12 is. And so that was the 1 year, but roughly it never crossed the threshold of 71,000 once. And the reason why I'm asking about that specifically is because I also know, having actually worked in there under the Office of Community Relations, that we cannot keep directors. We typically end up with graduate students for longer than an interim position typically is. So if we're truly committed to making sure that the Black Culture Center, as well as others, are creating the climate and whatnot, and given that it comes up under potentially student life, the question would be, are we undermining potentially what the office would do? So now that it will potentially be moved, that is a good thing, but that's why I posed the questions I posed, because I know how some of the stuff works on the inside. The next piece is the reduction of academic retention services. It's only $30,000, but it also hasn't gotten the same increase as that of the Student Success Center, because academic retention services is crucial and critical to the success of minorities, specifically the ones that are involved in the program. And if we haven't increased that budget, but we've increased Student Success Center, which is open to all, it just shows that we're potentially missing an opportunity there. I am happy to at least see that with regards to the campus diversity programs, there was nearly a $500,000 increase, and the scholarships, we talked about that with Mr. Henson. So I guess the last question would be, what are the going forward, what are the next steps that we can potentially see something fruitful come from? I guess in between now and the end of session, if you had asked me why people were not being responsive, I would say because we're in session, though the committee does have the ability to have hearings at the interim. So I did want to make you aware that we will be monitoring the situation, and we hope that you will provide us information willingly though we'll continue to use the freedom of information request. And I just ask that, I'm not sure how you came up with the numbers you came up with for the information, $700 and $800 for those bits of information. It just seems that you're being somewhat obstructionist in terms of providing this information. That's not for you. We requested information from both the system and Mizzou, and the cost that we got back. Everybody else has waived the fees for getting access to that information. But both the system and Mizzou have said around about figure between $700 and $900 is what it would cost for them to even begin compiling the information. And I've been requesting freedom of information requests from elected officials' offices across the state. Everybody's been very helpful except for you all. So I would hope that in the future that you would change that practice or policy and let the information flow so we can figure out how best to assist you and change the perception of the perceived flagship institution. Representative Hoffman, do you have anything? You all have anything that you want to close with?
I don't believe so, Representative Curtis. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about things that we are doing, and you can all look forward to a progress report from the division in the very near future.
Thank you much. I'll bring the hearing to a close because we don't have the quorum to do the bill hearing, so we will move that potentially to Wednesday, but I'll bring the hearing to a close.